All right, welcome back to Newsgang, and we now go to that capital surrender that we talked about. The county of Nairobi finally handing over 4 key functions to the national government, and a statement coming out today from Governor Sonko explaining that this was done after serious benchmarking in places like Washington, D.C. and Abuja. But let's listen first to Devolution CS Eugene Wamalwa, who really now is the main man insofar as the management of Nairobi is concerned. He was trying to clarify what exactly this means.
And it's not correct for anyone to purport that the national government has dissolved the county government of Nairobi. The county government remains in place with the governor, the executive, and the county assembly. But there are these 4 functions that have specifically been transferred to the national government for effective delivery.
So the 4 functions, I mean, it's not been dissolved without a doubt, but perhaps only on paper, because if you think about it, I mean, what is left for Governor Sonko to do, Francis? I was told there was something like vaccination of dogs. But and a few other things here and there, but
that was transferred as well.
No, that is part of what is left. And agriculture. I mean, like, some people will need to say what agriculture happens in Nairobi, but this was a major development, without a doubt, that transport, public works and utilities, that you have health, which is really the biggest
urban
thing
planning.
All this. Transport, urban planning, development, all of this, and the mother of them all, that the revenue now will be collected by KRA. What really happened here, Francis?
You see, Eugene Wamalwa, the CS in charge of devolution, was trying to sound nice, that the county has not been dissolved. Yes, it hasn't been dissolved, but basically what has been left is a shell. Governor Sonko has been reduced to a mere figurehead. Why do I say so? I mean, the 4 functions are at the heart of the operations at Nairobi City County government and any other county for argument's sake. I mean, health services, transport services, planning and development services, and then county public works. They account for, let's say, about 80% of the county budget. So if 80% of the budget has been taken away, 80% of the functions has been taken away, then what are you left with? By way of analogy, Sonko had a vehicle. 4 wheels have been taken away from him. The steering wheel has been taken away from him. The engine has been taken away from him. So what is left? A shell. And more fundamentally, those 4 functions will be taken care of by the national government. So in terms of day-to-day running of the county, those are the functions that you see. I mean, when you come to Nairobi, you're talking about transport, you're talking about health, you're talking about urban planning, you're talking about public works. Those are roads and everything else. Those are the key functions. Those are the things that people talk about. Those are the services that people are asking for. So if the governor is not in charge of those functions, then what is he in charge of? Basically, the governance has been taken away from him. Amebaki tu hivyo, so to say.
But Linus, this was a long time in coming.
Long in coming, and to assume that Sonko had any governance left in his hands is actually not accurate, because Sonko, since the day he started facing this corruption court case and being arrested in Voi, his goose was cooked. This was a takeover, basically, of the functions of the government of the county government by the national government. This is Jubilee saying we are going to give him a soft landing, because ideally what would have happened, and we don't know whether going into next week more things could happen, like impeachment and then calls for an election possibly, because Nairobi doesn't have a deputy governor. So it is a vacuum. I think what the national government is trying to do and what the president is trying to do, having been so badly embarrassed by the handling of affairs of Nairobi, is to give this man who has been the president's friend. We've seen Sonko putting the president on the phone, on speakerphone in the earlier part of his term. So a lot has changed in their relationship, clearly, but still, this is a soft landing for Sonko it's a very soft exit, because the real deal is he should be impeached and there should be a fresh election for governor of Nairobi.
I think what's interesting for me is that this looks like a rehearsal of the proposals regarding Nairobi in the BBI report. And I was going through the one regarding Nairobi, and it's very
BBI
interesting.
report?
Returning it into a metropolitan.
Okay, I see what you mean. Right, and it's
But
returning it to a
quite a
metropolis.
number of BBI reports that have been
I
flying
know,
around.
right?
Yes,
But
that is true.
let us
here's the
in on
interesting
this one.
thing, guys. Order. But here's what it is. It makes the case for Nairobi being giving it
Having
special
a special
status.
status, yeah.
And it's very interesting because it ties into the very functions that were taken away. So could this be, what we call a trisex, and see how it goes, especially with the members of the public, to try and just sort of ease them into it, and perhaps this is what happens by 2022, because note, this thing is 2 years. Possibly up for renewal, which will be by 2022. So what it talks about in the BBI report, in fact, they cite the agreement between Kenya and the United Nations regarding, Nairobi as the UNEP headquarters. And they talk about, and this is what it says in that BBI report, that the headquarters shall be supplied with necessary services like electricity, water, sewage, gas, post, telephone, telegraph, local transportation, drainage, collection of refuse, fire protection, all of these that you see quite similar to what we're seeing now. Another thing that is interesting is this whole idea of public participation, right? So, the deed talks about this being effective 21 days from now.
Yep.
And then they tell us that there is
There's a
public
date to it, March
participation.
17th.
March 17th.
Yes, March 17th. But here's a few things that are interesting. It seems that we're putting the cart before the horse.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't we then ask the residents of Nairobi, what do you think? There is this proposal on the table to transfer some of the functions to the national government, gather all the views, and then now have the signing. Because in essence, public participation means nothing in the process that we're seeing now. Further, things continue to happen. Like today, the PS in devolution, Sunkuli, has been appointed to help with the transition process. So things are moving, but we're being told that we will be given 21 days to, have our views heard. What if during that time we decide we're not? So we're going to go back and undo
by
the
way-
signing that
by
took
the way,
place
on
at
the
State
4th
House.
of March, there is a public participation meeting, exercise, whatever
There
it
you
is.
go.
In Kabete.
Yes, at the Kenya School of Government.
Right, and of all places, at the Kenya
Yeah,
School
so
of
people
Government.
are supposed to come from Madare and
There you go.
Kibra and Moja and all the,
the public
and then go to-
participation
Guys,
is a farce.
ridiculous.
It is.
Guys, look, this is largely a political process rather than a legal process. The agreement was signed, and you're told what will happen after the agreement has signed. Whatever would have happened before the agreement
Right.
has already happened, so you're being told now fit into the agreement. For example, within 21 days, public participation began yesterday. The county assembly was informed yesterday, and today they were kind of discussing it. They were not even aware. And even Sonko, I dare say he was not aware. Hakuwa na copy. So this statement that he gave us,
Come on, he
is-
said there was benchmarking in
So
Washington,
who
DC.
went to
in
went to DC?
In Abuja.
He
and
did?
He said, actually, it was interesting, the statement that he released, because he seemed to be saying that, we set out, we rolled out our programs
who?
as the county,
Yeah,
as the county government. He's saying that when they came into office with his team, they rolled out all these plans to develop Nairobi. But along the way, it became clear that Nairobi was quite unique, was different from all the other counties.
Well, what was
And
unique was his
therefore-
leadership
And
style.
therefore, they went to all these places to get tips, to get notes on how.
Joe, I have
the
my
capital
doubts about that statement, because the reporting that we've seen and the reports that have been receiving since that Tuesday is no one was aware of what State House was doing. They were given this deed of transfer to sign at the State House. That is the first time he knew about this. So he cannot purport to then do a long press statement that explains why this was done. I think the author of the deed and the press statement is the same.
But it's interesting, actually, how the president was standing behind.
the deed is here.
Right.
The deed is here with me. I want to refer you to a place, and it is also gazetted, whereas the Nairobi City County government is conscious of its internal constraints as to the effective discharge of its functions.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then whereas
on
the
the screen,
whereas the Nairobi City County government recognizes that in light of the scope of the devolved functions, some of the functions currently vested in the Nairobi County would be more effectively performed and exercised by the national government. When was this realization made? It's been 2 years. In fact, Eugene Wamalwa, the cabinet secretary, yesterday, when interviewed by our colleague Colin Shitiabai in Kitale, said, and this is one of the bites that I would be happy if we can play, that Nairobi County, the national government cannot allow Nairobi County government to be dysfunctional.
Yeah,
Yes.
actually, I think we have that soundbite.
Yeah.
All has not been well in Nairobi for a while. Unless you're a stranger in Jerusalem, you would definitely know that things have not been well in Nairobi. And it's a matter that has not just been of concern to the people of Nairobi, but also the people of Kenya. When you have investors coming to Nairobi and development plans cannot be approved for months on end, this will cause Nairobi to lose because investors will move to Rwanda and other great cities that are working. So we cannot afford Nairobi to be dysfunctional.
Now show me in that soundbite where the benchmarking is. Number two, show me where benchmarking is in that statement. And then secondly, there was a cabinet meeting on the 19th of December. And a discussion was held, I'm told, around Nairobi. And a subcommittee was constituted, chaired by Najib Balala, to look into the affairs of Nairobi and find a way of dealing with the situation in Nairobi. So was that part of benchmarking?
But ladies and gentlemen, what really happened? Where did the rain start beating Nairobi? Like, how did we get here? Because look, this is the capital city. This is the hub, the center of the universe called Kenya. What really happened?
It started
Venus.
off, I think.
Oh.
No, carry on.
It's actually difficult because we've not just been beaten by the rains, we've been beaten by worse things, including locusts and things related to the inefficiency of the system in place in Nairobi. The problem is, just remember the atmosphere of the 2017 election. It was euphoric. It was just about Jubilee versus NASA. It was just about Uhuru Kenyatta versus Raila Odinga. And that is where it stopped. It doesn't matter. And I remember, Joe, there was a time that people said that it doesn't matter who runs what, even if it's a dog running by that
Joseph
party,
Kamodo.
they'll be elected.
Yeah.
And it was Joseph Kamodo.
Yeah.
There is a certain blindness that comes during elections that people are not even questioning the quality, the merits, the ability, the capacity of the people they're electing. And we can't just say this is a Nairobi problem because it also goes all the way to the presidency. Look at the conversations we are having about 2022. Even in the depth of all this debt crisis, a struggling economy, corruption, even in the midst of all that, the kind of conversations we are having about 2022 are the kind of conversations that will not only make Sonko governor of Nairobi, but Sonko president of the Republic of Kenya. Ridiculous conversations. Those are our standards. So let's not look at Sonko and say he found himself there. Kenyans delivered him there. And that is something they are saying about themselves rather than about Sonko.
Yeah, and even when you talk about, Sonko and the man he's been, like we're saying, the political parties that played a role in I mean, he passed political party vetting, IEBC vetting, and all of these, was overwhelmingly voted.
And this wasn't even his first.
It wasn't his first rodeo. Yes,
that was his third election.
Absolutely, first as
Makadara member
then
of Parliament, senator,
then now governor.
You can imagine what would have been next.
And indeed, oh my gosh, yes, and everything that we have seen after. I mean, take a look at the reshuffles. How many did we have with Sonko? I mean, I think one, Mr. Charles Kerich was suspended, reinstated, moved from one department to the next. There was a part who was CEC of everything. I think there was a time Sonko had only two CECs, substantive, because he had suspended others. He even suspended them after the court case that said he couldn't. I mean, his leadership has been something, and that is what the cabinet secretary was referring to. So all of this benchmarking that we're seeing, and we were subjected to this. So, it's interesting that it comes to a head now. now. I just have one question for you, Francis. So, is there a need to impeach this man? All of the important functions have been stripped from him. In
This is
essence,
already
he's
an
been
impeachment.
right there. You
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
and he's already been barred by the courts because of his corruption case that is pending. I mean, so you know, what is there left? I mean,
To what end?
To what end?
Impeach him to what end?
Yeah.
I would even suspect, and I'm privy to some information, that this discussion to ask the mover of the motion to even probably
down.
withdraw it or slow down, or even have the motion discussed on Tuesday and it falls. Because basically, if you impeach him, then you attract provisions of Article 182, because there will be a vacancy in the office of governor and a vacancy in the office of deputy governor. So those provisions kick in. That
So you
is,
will need an election.
there will be
Yeah.
a vacancy and it will trigger a by-election. It will cost about 1 billion or 1.5 billion
1.5,
shillings
yes, that's
to
what
conduct a by-election in Nairobi. For 2 years,
But
and
let's
you've
face
already
it.
taken away those functions
let's
for
face
2
it,
years.
I mean,
So there's nothing left.
Who wants a by-election in Nairobi when the BBI
Right.
reggae is going
I
on?
It's
doubt
going
that
on.
they want that
So
distraction.
I highly doubt that impeachment motion will sail through, and even if it was to be discussed in the House, it will fall. Maybe MCAs from both ends will be told, don't vote for it, let it fall. The earliest you can reintroduce it is after 6 months. So
By
I mean,
which
no
point?
need. So I mean, 3 months or 6 months. So no need to have it, because basically that which you would have impeached him for
Has already been taken
done.
away. His
I
powers
mean,
have been
functions have been
muted.
taken away.
Yeah.
Revenue collection has been taken away. So what is left?
And I think now that you're talking about all those functions, and these are the questions that many people are grappling with, because they're saying the county has not been dissolved, the MCAs remain. So will the MCAs be able to audit Kenya Revenue Authority and say, can we take a look at these functions? So who, in essence, provides the oversight for those functions that have been transferred to the national government? Who then, you know, audits what happens with the functions that have been left behind? I mean, I think there's still some questions that Nairobians need to answer in terms of who is now to be held accountable for
But you
which
see,
functions.
audit. I mean, oversight is not figurative. It is not. It is not. It's a process. Because there will be reports that will be made to the National Assembly and to the County Assembly. The Kenya National
Every year. I think that's what they said in
Every
the
year, the
deeds.
Kenya National Audit Office will still do its job in terms of auditing what is being done in the Nairobi County government, how money is being spent. So there will still be a role for oversight by the County Assembly. Their functions haven't been taken away from them. Probably they'll even be required to be more alert, because the Ministry of Devolution will have a key role to play in the management of Nairobi County government. But moving forward, as you said earlier, this is probably a dress rehearsal for what is likely to come up. Remember Kembe Gitura, the former senator from Murang'a, just before his term lapsed in the last parliament, he had introduced a bill to return Nairobi to make Nairobi a metropolis or metropolitan.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that bill lapsed before that bill was not discussed
Yeah.
before the
And I
time
think we
lapsed.
have his tweet as
Yeah, we
we
have his
speak,
tweet.
yes.
And
There we go.
this is one of the proposals that are in the BBI. So I dare say, probably this is the last time Nairobians will be electing a governor. Maybe moving forward to 2022, it will be something else.
But is it necessarily a good thing? Because we are making the assumption that the intervention of the national government will be efficient, will be competent.
Far
Yet
from it.
This is a false assumption. We've seen this before. There was a time President Daniel Arap Moi, the late second president of Kenya, dissolved the Nairobi City Council and put in place a Nairobi
commission.
City Commission headed by Fred Gumo and then later by
Congo.
Kimani Congo. These chaps did exactly the same, if not worse, than the elected leaders. I think each time we run away from processes that promote efficiency, we'll run into the same wall.
It
we're
is
trying
true, but
to
I
avoid
think
in the
that
first place.
right now, Linus, I think what I have heard people say is that it probably can't get worse than what has been going on. That, I mean, it was rock bottom, that anything else
better
would
than
be
this.
better than what was going on. But true, I mean, there is a sense in which this is a worrying precedent, especially in the manner in which it has been done. It just seems that the national government can step in and take over any government as long as they can talk to the governor and they put pen to paper, regardless of what the people are thinking, regardless of what the quality of governance then comes that comes out of this one. I think there will need to be a greater conversation, in my view, about the status of not just Nairobi, but some of the bigger cities that may have more complex questions that are not just about the, you know, the devolved structure, but also touch, because Nairobi, for example, it is not just about, you know, giving services to the residents of Langata and Umoja and what have you, but it is also the seat of the national government. It has a dimension to which Kenya has to present a certain image even to the world. So how do you make sure that that is also taken care of as you deal with the devolution questions?
Absolutely. And back to that BBI report, the thing that concerned me about it is, and it's what we're asking, what problem are we trying to solve? Is this a problem of Sonko's leadership, or are we trying to solve the issues of the residents of Nairobi? Is this just one way of, you know, dealing with Sonko, you know, as the problem, or is it about Nairobi? Even in that BBI report, all of the examples they have cited, and they keep talking about making, you know, Nairobi a diplomatic hub, and this is all for the diplomats and everybody, and UNEP and UN, and I see nothing here about the residents of Nairobi County who deserve better services.
And I think that is the bit that I was talking about, that there is a dimension of Nairobi that is about the residents, but there's also a dimension of Nairobi that is really not about the residents, it's about the image that we present to the rest of the world, because this is the seat of power. Absolutely. So it is also there's also a sense in which my village mates in Siaya would be interested in what is happening in Nairobi, even though they don't live
but
there.
Haven't you seen what other residents of various counties are saying? National government, please take over functions from our county government.
Setting a bad precedent.
That governors need to be very careful.